Copper Ridge, Colorado Territory, 1882. Asa Reed had been courting Delia Sutton for the better part of 2 months, careful and patient. Before he understood, he'd only ever seen half of who she was. He found her on the porch that afternoon, holding her younger brother Jamie against her chest. 16 now, already taller than she was. His fever-weakened frame collapsed into her anyway, too heavy for her to lift outright, but held close all the same, one hand cradling the back of his head. Her whole body braced around him, like she'd already decided, somewhere deep and wordless, she would not lose him. Her face carried a fear Asa had never once seen on her in 2 months of knowing her. Not even the day her own mother had taken a bad fall on the ice. Jamie had collapsed in the yard an hour before, burning with fever, and Delia had half carried, half dragged him the last 30 yards to the house herself, his boots scraping useless furrows in the dirt, rather than wait for help. "He's sick," she said when Asa asked, her voice steady with the force of someone holding steadiness together on purpose. "He's been sick before. Worse than this. I know what to do." Asa didn't understand yet what she meant by that. That she'd done this before. That this exact fear had a history he knew nothing about. He'd learn the rest of it soon enough. And when he did, he'd realize the woman on that porch was only the half of Delia Sutton he'd ever been allowed to see. Delia Sutton was 26, ran the informal schoolhouse on the edge of Copper Ridge. Informal because she'd never held a proper teaching certificate, though every family in town sent their children to her regardless, having long since decided her competence mattered more than any paperwork the territory could offer. Colorado Territory had no formal system for certifying teachers before statehood in 1876, and even after, that kind of oversight took years to reach a town as small as Copper Ridge. Until then, what counted was whatever the community decided counted, and Copper Ridge had decided, without ceremony, that Delia Sutton was worth more than any diploma could prove. She'd raised Jamie largely by herself, since their father died of a fever when the boy was 6. Their mother Ruth's health too fragile since to manage the physical work of raising him alone. Delia had taken to it without complaint, as far as anyone in Copper Ridge had ever witnessed, though the older women in town sometimes exchanged looks when the subject of Delia's own prospects came up. The look reserved for a story everyone half remembers, but nobody quite says out loud. Nobody in town had ever asked Delia directly what that look meant, and Delia had never once offered to explain it, letting the silence do the work of a subject she preferred left closed. Asa had arrived in Copper Ridge 8 months back, taking on a modest spread at the edge of the valley, and had noticed Delia within his first month, sharp, unhurried, entirely unimpressed by the usual performance men put on, trying to win a woman's attention. He'd courted her slowly, the only way she seemed to trust, showing up at the schoolhouse with small, practical offerings rather than flowers. A repaired hinge on the door, firewood split and stacked before winter. The kind of help that asked nothing in return and revealed over weeks exactly the sort of man he intended to be. He'd learned over 2 careful months that she kept certain rooms of herself locked in a way he'd never quite found the right question to open. He knew she loved books more than most people he'd met loved anything. He knew she'd taught herself Latin from a borrowed grammar and could recite entire passages of poetry from memory, delivered in an offhand way that suggested she didn't fully realize how unusual that skill was for a woman running a one-room schoolhouse on the edge of the territory. He didn't know why a woman with that kind of mind had spent 9 years running a schoolhouse in a town too small to properly value it, instead of somewhere her education might have taken her. Asa Reed was 30 years old, had drifted through half a dozen outfits before saving enough to buy his own modest spread, and had learned, watching his own mother work herself into an early grave, trying to hold a struggling farm together after his father's death, that the women who did the most for a family were usually the ones whose own wants got mentioned least. He'd built his own ranch slowly since, first as a hired hand and then as an owner in his own right, working through winters that would have broken a less stubborn man, saving every dollar that wasn't strictly needed for the next season's seed and stock, year after patient year. He'd promised himself, watching his mother suffer that way as a boy, that he would never again let a woman's sacrifices go unnoticed, simply because she'd made a habit of not mentioning them. It was, more than anything else, what had drawn him to Delia in the first place. Not just her intelligence, though that alone would have been enough, but the quiet suspicion, forming slowly over 2 months, that she was carrying something she'd trained herself not to set down in front of anyone. He recognized that kind of quiet strength because he'd watched it up close his whole boyhood and had promised himself, somewhere in those years, that he wouldn't simply admire it in a woman someday without also trying to lighten it. He hadn't pushed. He'd learned, courting her, that Delia answered careful patience with more openness than she ever gave direct questions, and had contented himself with the slow accumulation of small honesties she offered when she was ready, rather than when he asked. A story about her father's laugh here, a memory of teaching herself to read by candlelight there. Pieces of a whole picture he was slowly assembling without ever demanding to see it finished, trusting that patience would eventually earn him what impatience never could. Watching her on the porch that afternoon, Jamie's fever climbing, her whole body braced around him like she'd done this exact thing before and expected to have to do it again. Asa knew he was looking at the edge of whatever room she'd kept locked. It was about to open, whether either of them had planned for it to. Dr. Whitfield arrived within the hour, having ridden hard from the far side of the valley, and examined Jamie with the brisk efficiency of a man who'd seen 100 fevers and still took none of them lightly. "It's not the scarlet fever again," he said, checking Jamie's throat and the rash beginning along his collar, his hands quick and practiced. "Something else, a bad chest infection by the sound of that cough. Dangerous even in a boy his size, but not what took hold of him before. I'll need herbs from my own stock. I don't keep on hand for house calls. I can be back by morning." "Morning might be too late," Delia said, and her voice carried the flat certainty of memory rather than fear alone, a knowledge she'd already lived through once. "I'll do what I can tonight," Dr. Whitfield said. "Keep him cool, keep him drinking water, and pray the fever breaks before it climbs any higher. I've seen worse turn around by morning. I've also seen it go the other way." He looked at Delia directly, something almost apologetic crossing his face. "You know that better than most in this town, Miss Sutton. You did this once already, and you did it right." He left before Asa could ask what the doctor meant by that, and found Delia already turned back toward Jamie's bed, her face closed again the way it had been closed for 2 months of careful courtship. The door he'd been standing at the edge of, quietly shutting once more. Asa found Ruth Sutton in the kitchen an hour later, steeping a tea Delia had instructed her to prepare, her hands unsteady with age and worry both. "You want to know what the doctor meant," Ruth said, before Asa had even finished forming the whole of the question in his own mind. "About her doing this once already." "I do," Asa said quietly and firmly, "if you're willing to tell me the whole of it." Ruth set down the teapot and sat, her voice dropping into the register of a story carried a long time, without much occasion to tell it. "Jamie nearly died of scarlet fever when he was 8, she said. "Same year Delia was accepted into a ladies' seminary back east, Massachusetts, a real school, the kind of place a frontier girl gets offered maybe once in her whole life, if she's lucky and clever enough, which Delia was both. She'd studied for that examination for 2 years on her own. borrowed books from every family in 3 counties, taught herself things her own schooling never covered: geometry, French, more Latin than most college men manage. The seminary's letter called her one of the finest examination scores they'd seen from any Western applicant in a decade. She was set to leave that September, trunk already half-packed. "What happened?" Asa said quietly, though some part of him had already begun to understand. "Jamie got sick 3 weeks before she was meant to board the train," Ruth said. "I was already poorly myself that year. Couldn't manage the nursing a fever like that required, the constant watching, the cooling baths through the night. Someone strong enough to hold a thrashing, delirious child still for the worst of it." His father had died only 2 years before that, and I don't mind telling you I wasn't holding together well enough myself to be much use to anyone. Grief still sitting heavy on me most days. Delia wrote to the seminary and gave up her place. Never told them why, beyond family circumstances. Never told Jamie the full truth of it either. Not once, not in 9 years. He still doesn't rightly know what she gave up to keep him alive, and I expect she'd rather it stayed that way. Though I've never agreed with her on that point. This story's already found its way to places I never imagined when I sat down to write it. Brazil, Nigeria, India, the Philippines, corners of the world I'm only starting to learn the names of. If Delia, Jamie, and Asa are keeping you good company tonight, a like helps more than you know. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every comment. Now, Jamie's fever hasn't broken yet, and Asa is about to understand exactly what it costs Delia, every single time her brother gets sick, to hold that fear steady without ever once asking anyone to hold it with her. Asa found her on the porch again near midnight, having finally coaxed Jamie into a restless sleep at last, her own eyes hollow with exhaustion and something older than exhaustion. "Your mother told me about the seminary," Asa said, sitting beside her. Delia's whole body went still. "She had no right," Delia said, quiet and sharp at once. "Maybe not," Asa said, "but I'm glad she did, because I've spent 2 months trying to understand what you keep locked away, and I don't think I'd have ever gotten there on my own, patient as I tried to be. Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because it isn't a story I tell," Delia said. "It's not a sad tale I trot out for sympathy, Asa. It's just what happened. I made a choice. I've never once regretted the choice itself. Jamie's alive, and nothing else matters more than that fact. I've just never found a way to talk about it that doesn't sound like I'm asking someone to feel sorry for me, and I would rather live the rest of my life unpitied than spend 1 more minute performing grief over a door that closed 9 years ago. A door I closed myself and would close again without hesitating." "I'm not offering pity," Asa said. "I'm offering to actually see you. Every part, not just the parts you've decided are safe to show a man courting you slowly enough not to ask hard questions." Delia was quiet a long moment, watching the dark line of the road with the flat, careful blankness of someone who'd stopped letting herself hope years ago, her hands folded tight in her lap as though holding something in place. "I dream about that letter sometimes," she said finally, so quietly, Asa nearly missed it. "The acceptance letter. I kept it for years, in the bottom of a trunk, before I finally burned it. I told myself it was easier not having it there to look at. I'm not sure that was ever true. Some nights I think I'd give a great deal just to read it one more time, even knowing exactly how it ends." "I watched my own mother do something similar," Asa said after a while, his voice quiet in the dark. "Not the same shape of sacrifice, but the same kind of quiet. Giving up wanting things for herself, because somebody else's needs always seem to arrive first and stay longest. She worked herself into an early grave, never once asking anyone to notice what it cost her. I promised myself, watching that happen, that I'd never let a woman I loved disappear into that same silence without somebody at least trying to see her plainly. Is that what this is? Delia asked. You loving me? Been building towards saying it for about 3 weeks now, Asa said. Wanted to be sure it wasn't just admiration talking. It isn't. I love you, Delia, the school teacher who never got her certificate because she was always mending some other emergency first, and the girl who gave up Massachusetts for a scarlet fever ward, and every part in between that you've been carrying alone, because you decided a long time ago that carrying it alone was simply what capable people did. Delia's composure finally broke, quiet and unshowy. Tears she didn't bother wiping away, her shoulders finally dropping from the careful set they'd held for hours. I don't know how to want something for myself anymore, she said. I gave that up so long ago I'm not sure I remember how it worked. Then we'll figure it out together, Asa said. Same as we're figuring out how to get your brother through tonight, because his fever's climbing again, and neither of us has slept. Jamie's fever spiked dangerously past midnight, his breathing gone shallow and ragged in a way that frightened even Dr. Whitfield's calm assessment from hours before. Delia watched her brother's chest working too hard for air and knew, with a certainty that had nothing to do with the doctor's earlier reassurance, that morning might genuinely be too late. I need the herbs from Whitfield's own stock, tonight, not tomorrow morning, Delia said, her voice steady through sheer force of will alone, her hands never leaving Jamie's damp forehead. There's a storm building over the ridge. He won't make the ride back himself until it clears, and I won't watch my brother suffocate waiting on weather to cooperate. Asa was already pulling on his coat. Tell me exactly what he keeps and where, and don't waste breath telling me it's too dangerous. I've already decided. The ride to Dr. Whitfield's house on the far side of the valley took the better part of an hour in good weather, and the weather had turned considerably worse by the time Asa reached it. Wind picking up hard enough to make the return trip genuinely dangerous. The trail barely visible under a sky gone black with the storm rolling in off the mountains. Rain beginning to needle sideways into his face before he'd covered half the distance. Dr. Whitfield packed the herbs himself once roused, along with careful instructions written by lantern light, his hands quick despite the hour, and Asa rode back into weather that would have turned back a less determined man, his horse fighting the wind the entire way, the trail nearly lost twice in the dark, before instinct and stubbornness got him back to the Sutton house with the medicine intact. The herbs kept dry inside his coat against his own chest the whole ride. He arrived soaked through and shaking with cold himself, and found Delia exactly where he'd left her. Jamie's hand gripped tight in both of hers, her lips moving in something between prayer and pure will, her whole body rigid with the effort of holding both fear and hope steady at once. The herbs worked by dawn, Jamie's breathing easing into something less ragged sometime past 4 in the morning, his fever finally beginning its slow retreat as the storm outside spent itself into ordinary rain. Delia sat by his bed until full light, refusing every offer Asa made to relieve her even for an hour. And only once Dr. Whitfield himself arrived at sunrise and confirmed the worst had passed did she finally let herself lean back in the chair, exhaustion overtaking the fear that had held her upright all night, her hands finally still in her lap for the first time in hours. You rode into that storm without a second thought, she told Asa quietly, once Jamie was sleeping peacefully and the danger had genuinely passed. Didn't have much use for a second thought, Asa said. First one seemed clear enough. That's twice now I've watched someone give something up without hesitating, for Jamie's sake, Delia said. Once was me, 9 years ago. I understood that sacrifice from the inside, every long night of it. I'd never quite understood what it looked like from the other side, watching somebody else do it, until tonight, watching you ride out into weather that could have easily gotten you killed. wasn't a sacrifice," Asa said. "Not the way you mean it. I rode for medicine because I love you and I love that boy. And there wasn't a version of tonight where I didn't try. That's different from giving up a whole future for it. I know the difference, even if it doesn't always feel that way from the inside." She found him mending fence a week later. Jamie fully recovered and already back to his usual noise. The whole ordeal settling into memory the way frightening things eventually do once the danger has genuinely passed. "I wrote to the seminary," she told him, "not to ask for my old place back. I'm too old for that, and too needed here besides. I wrote to ask whether they still offer the correspondence examinations for a teaching certificate. They do. I could sit for it by next spring, studying evenings, same as I taught myself everything else." "That's good news," Asa said, his voice rough with relief. "It is," Delia said, something easing in her shoulders for the first time in days. "I spent 9 years telling myself the dream was gone entirely, burned along with that letter. It wasn't gone. It was just smaller than it used to be, and I'd stopped looking at it closely enough to notice it was still there at all." "What changed your mind about looking?" Asa asked, setting down the wire cutters entirely now, giving her his full attention. "You did," Delia said. "Watching you ride into a storm without asking whether it was worth the risk taught me something about what it actually looks like to want something enough to fight for it, instead of simply enduring what circumstances hand you. I'd forgotten I was allowed to want things that way too. I'd spent so long being the person who managed everyone else's crisis that I'd stopped believing I was owed a crisis of my own, worth fighting for. A future I could choose instead of one that simply happened to me. Then I'd like to keep teaching you that lesson," Asa said, "for considerably longer than one bad night, if you'll have me for the rest of it." "Yes," Delia said, "I'll have you and the correspondence course both, and I don't intend to choose between them ever again." They married the following spring, once Jamie was fully strong again and Delia's first correspondence examination results had arrived. Passed with marks high enough that the seminary's own letter mentioned, almost apologetically, that they wished she'd found her way back to them years sooner. Delia earned her full teaching certificate within 2 years, studying most evenings after Jamie was asleep and the day's ranch work fully done. Asa often reading beside her at the same table, simply to keep her company through the harder passages of coursework, refilling her lamp oil without being asked whenever it ran low. Copper Ridge's schoolhouse, informal no longer, grew into the finest in the county under her official instruction. Families from neighboring towns eventually sending their own children to board with relations just for the chance at her classroom. Jamie grew into a strong, easygoing young man who never did learn the full weight of what his sister had given up for him. Though Delia told him eventually, gently, on his own 17th birthday, not as a burden to carry, she told him, but as a fact worth knowing about the kind of person his sister actually was. Jamie cried harder than either of them expected and hugged her longer than a 17-year-old usually allowed himself to hug anyone, and never once, in all the years after, took for granted what that hug had actually been thanking her for. Asa built a second room onto their house that first year, a proper study lined with shelves, and filled it slowly with every book Delia had ever mentioned wanting and never allowed herself to buy. A standing joke between them that he was still, 9 years late, delivering her acceptance letter to Massachusetts, one shelf at a time. Delia kept a single empty space on the highest shelf, reserved, she told him, for whatever book she hadn't discovered wanting yet. Ruth Sutton lived to see her daughter's certificate framed on the schoolhouse wall, and told anyone who'd listen that she'd never once regretted telling Asa the truth that terrible night. Because some doors, she said, only ever open again when somebody finally has the nerve to ask what's behind them. I made a choice. I've never once regretted the choice itself. That's the line I keep coming back to. Not because Delia was wrong to say it, but because I think it's possible to mean every word of a sentence like that and still be carrying something unspoken underneath it for 9 long years. Not regret exactly, just an ache that never got room to exist out loud, because saying it might have sounded like taking back a choice she'd never actually wanted to take back in the first place. Asa didn't fix that ache by solving it for her. He didn't even really fix it by riding into a storm, brave as that was. He fixed it, if fixed is even the right word, simply by noticing there was a locked room there at all, and by being patient enough to wait until she was ready to open the door herself, rather than forcing his way in, because he decided he had a right to know. Some sacrifices don't need to be undone to be honored. They just need somebody willing to finally see the whole size of them. Thank you, truly and honestly, for riding with me today. Until next time, my friend, keep riding wherever the road takes you.